Hello, everybody. This evening we have Linn Beate and Viktor Sinding-Larsen together with us in the studio. And we are going to talk a little bit more about scooter and bike touring. Viktor and Linn are some of the best in the sport. They are multiple world and European champions in both bike and scooter. And we have had a lot of questions from people that they are going to try to answer today for you. So hello, Linn. Hello, Viktor. I hope you guys are having a nice evening, and so nice that you can be here together with us.
Yeah, thanks.
First question. What are the most important things to teach your dog before starting with bike touring or scooter?
Normally we start to train the dogs when they are 7 to 8 months old. And all the time before that we start kind of have in mind what they are going to do. So all the time we prepare them for this day. And so we spend a lot of time in harness by foot, for example, taking the evening walks with them in harness. So they are used to pulling and they are used to meeting things. They are used to passing and they are used to the commands of left and right. So all these things, none of these things are new. And then we also try to spend some time so that the dog is used to the bike, the sound of the bike, but without pulling. So that when we go out, nothing comes as a surprise in a kind of way.
Yeah.
And we also try to make the first time not a big thing. We just go out with the bike, see how it goes, always end it. We are prepared for it to be very, very short and something that we will do often before it gets good. So we don't go out with them for training. It's more like training on pulling. So it's not an exercise, but it's a mental thing. And it will be for many, many months.
Yeah, you're basically preparing them to teach them how to do bike touring before they are doing bike touring, if I understand it correctly.
Yeah, you can say from they're born till the first time. It's something you think about every day in a kind of way.
Good. How to train a puppy for bike touring or scooter, and when do you guys start to train your young dogs?
We are not training them physically, like Viktor said. In the first question, it's just to get used. We started training when they are around 7-8 months, and it's just for fun. Just make sure that they love it, and just short sessions, about 1 kilometer. Sometimes it's, I think 1 kilometer can be a long training session for a puppy.
But we also have dogs, maybe some of our best dogs, at the age of 7 or 8 months, we see that it's no use. And then we just cut it out, let them mature, and you can start again a couple of months later. So some of the dogs, they didn't really start pulling before they were 13, 14 months. And others, they are superheroes at the age of 7 months. So it's very big differences. But even the best dog can be very, very slow in the beginning. But then I think it's important, you see this doesn't work. Instead of repeating things that doesn't work, it's better to give them time to mature. You can do other things. It's no need to hurry.
Yeah, and it's important to know that a puppy at 7-8 months is in this ghost age, when they think everything is scary. And if you're trying to introduce something new when they are in this period, it could be really scary, and they never forget it. This scary bike.
Yeah, so sometimes, like you said, it's better to wait.
Yes.
You can make problems stronger if you repeat it. Repeatedly, they don't manage, it will just be a bigger problem.
Yeah.
While just aging will overcome the problem.
How long should your first training sessions be when starting out for the first time with bike touring or scooter with an adult dog?
I think it's the same here as a puppy. Just do it very, very short and end it when things go well, and be prepared for doing it many, many times. So if it's a very short training, it can be just 1 kilometer. And then if you train only 1 kilometer and it works well, you can do this every day almost. But and the training will be very, very short. But we have this problem, or we have this challenge every year when we start after the summer holiday. We give our dogs 8 weeks off. So when they start kind of on scratch, and we just do it 2-3 kilometers, even for the racing dogs.
This rest is this 8-week period is just without pulling in harness.
Yeah.
They do swimming and other kind of activities, but we take them out of the harness for 8 weeks.
Yeah, but it's good to have a break. Everybody needs a break.
Yes.
How long distance can a dog run each stage of their lives? Thinking about from months to years.
Yeah, okay. It's a build-up, you just increase slowly. Like we said earlier, when we start up after the summer holiday, we start with 3 kilometers and we build it up each year, actually.
And like, for example, a 1-year-old dog, how long would you go maximum with a 1-year-old dog?
Maximum for 1-year-old dog. It depends on the period in the summer or autumn or but I think maximum for bikejoring I wouldn't go further than maybe 7K. I think that's a maximum for our dogs. Don't do longer than 7K.
Yeah. So we start when they are like 7-8 months, and then they do maybe 1-2 kilometers. We build up to like 7 when they're 1 year old, and then the age of 2-3 or like 2 years old, when they start competing, they should manage around 10
to 13, 15 sometimes.
And bikejoring and scooter, or are you talking about snow?
No, bikejoring scooter.
Okay.
If you go slow, they can go longer.
Yeah.
And if the weather is cold and the surface is fine, you can go further.
And when are your dogs, for example, retiring, or when do you say like, okay, now we are reducing the distance?
Depends on earlier injuries. It's very important with senior dogs, like when they are after 6-7 years. This build-up with kilometer is very important for them. Because if you go too fast with a little old knee, this old knee will be really bad if you go too soon, too long, or too fast. So very careful. The senior dogs, we need more restitution also.
When do you think maybe a dog should retire from pulling completely? Probably also depending on the dog, of course. But
as long as it doesn't have any injuries, I think, and then they think it's fun, it's okay. But very often with our dogs, they are very motivated. So the head is like 2 years old and the body is 10 years, and it's a very bad combination for making new injuries.
So what do you do then? Do it shorter and not so often.
Not so fast, not so often, not so far. Yeah.
But all this with distances is very, very individual.
yeah.
Some dogs can run and run and run, and others will need shorter, lower speed, more recovery time. So it's a very hard question to answer.
It's so many things, like also the surface with all dogs, on hard surface, it's really hard for the body.
And also temperature. If you live in Norway, it's very often cold. You can do longer. This further south you come, 10K is not the same as 10K if it's 0 degrees or 17 degrees.
How to start with scooter? Is it better to start with bike, or is it okay to start out immediately with the scooter?
I don't think it's a big difference, but I do 99.9% of my training on the bike. I think I prefer the bike, and I think it's much easier to adjust the speed and everything with the bike. And but it depends also where you live. Like if it's very flat where you live, then a scooter can be a good tool. But as long as there are hills, etc., then I think bike is a better tool to train the dogs with. But if you want your dog to be a scooter dog, you have to train with the scooter, because it's a little bit different. It's not as smooth as going with the bike, so it has to be used to the kicking. But to get the perfect scooter dog, I think it's important that the dog is built for scooter. Like not every dog can be the best scooter dog, and not every dog can be the best bikejoring dog. But if you have a bigger dog, a strong one with maybe not the same maximum speed as the bikejoring dogs, then it's perfect for scooter, and you need to train on the scooter to make it perform the best.
But I think if you start to train a dog that's not so used to harness work with the scooter, when you come to a hill, it will stop because the speed is so slow, because you can't help them the same way as you can on the bike. So to learn the dog, to teach the dog to be a good puller, I think it's easier with the bike than the scooter. But if the dog is used to pull, it's more easy to use the scooter. And if you feel safer on the scooter also, it may be easier to stand on the scooter than a bike.
Yeah, for sure. But what I do with my scooter dog is I train them on bike. I train it very similar with the other dogs. But then weeks before the competitions, then we do a little scooter focus, have a scooter focus with a couple of exercises. And then they are ready.
How to learn to start with 2 dogs on a scooter when you have nobody to help you on the start?
Yeah, this is easier said than done, and maybe I'm not the right person to ask, but I really like the video that Niklas Moore made of starting with his dog, and he explains how he managed to start with 1 dog, and I think that's the key. Start with 1 dog at a time, make sure that this is perfect. Then the next step is to take 2 dogs at a time, and it can be complicated because it's not easy. But train 1 dog at a time, and then also do the same kind of training at home. They sit before they eat. They sit before they get there and go out of the cage. These kind of things. Good contact training, and spend a lot of time on it. Do it again and again and again. Do it at home. Bring out the harness. Take the bike out in the garden and just stand up. And then the next step is to take the 2 dogs at the same time. And if they're really crazy, I prefer to just walk to an uphill, start in an uphill. It's a little bit easier. But then you have kind of failed, because then they are crazy already.
Patience is key.
Patience is key. Well said.
And time enough. Yeah.
The next set of questions is about focus and motivation. Do you have any tips to keep your dogs focused during training? Some dogs might get distracted when you have to pass bikers, dogs, other animals. How do you guys teach this to your dogs?
I think it's very big differences between the dogs, but we live in the city, and it's very convenient, or we spend a lot of time with our dogs, walking them in the park, make them see all kind of things. They have seen birds and squirrels, bikers, other dogs, etc. We train them in harness by foot, so that when they meet them in the trail, it's nothing new. We don't take them with bike in the harness trying to meet these kind of obstacles. I try to go places where, so that we don't meet these kind of things we meet on the street, on foot, etc. And if we meet obstacles that they're really, really interested in, just try to make it not make it a big thing. Just we're not going to chase those squirrels. We're going in this direction and not make a big thing out of it.
You're not looking for these obstacles when you're going to train on a bike. Like you want to train this before you go on a bike, or like meet them in a different situation. That's easier to handle, if I understand it correctly. It's easier to handle it when you're by foot than you are on a bike. So it's easier to teach them to pass things when you're on foot than when you're on a bike.
It is, but we never train this on the bike. Then we try to avoid it.
Yeah.
And if it happens, we meet something that they're interested in, we don't make it as a big thing. We just.
How can you train your dog to pass other teams and not lose focus after you have passed them?
I think the most important thing training passings is that you don't do it. Don't pass a team if you're not sure that you are going to make it. But if you're not sure that you can pass another team, then I try to make sure that we have someone in front of us. So we pass a team with another team in front of us, for example, and if I'm not sure on training that we can pass, I'll just stay behind, wait for someone else to come, or I try to do it in the beginning of the exercise. Fresh. And I also try to communicate up front before the training that I'm not sure if we will gonna make it. So we are cooperating. We have a plan that the other one will break, make sure that we will pass, and we will get enough room so that the dog will continue. And we do this kind of trainings in the beginning, not at the end of a long exercise, for example. But the main thing is that don't do it if you're not sure, and try to get help from the others. Say that I want to train this today. Can you help me do this? Communicate. Make sure that they are always good examples, or it's always have
set them up for success.
Yeah, set them up for success. Don't pass, and if they stop, don't let the dog ever kind of decide that they want to stop not passing, because every time you do it, I think you make it an even bigger problem.
Sometimes, for example, your dog can pass another team perfectly, but then stops running fast, or how I say, slowing down a bit in speed, and losing a little focus. How do you make them keep going on in a good speed that they just pass?
Yeah, I don't think it's a quick fix. I think this is the key is to again and again and again you do passings with good experience, and I don't think it should happen that it pass and stops running, because then you haven't done the basic work, is not in place in a kind of way. So then it's like taking one step back, make sure that you have plenty of good passings before, and if you're not sure at all, then I will just let the dog mature, make sure that it's still too young, it doesn't understand. I won't do any passings for the next 2-3 months, and we'll try again. So that's not I don't have any quick fixes. So if I'm passing, then I'm sure that I have someone in front, for example. I'm sure that it would be a good passing.
How can you keep your dog motivated after some heavy training sessions if you see that he is starting to get a little bit demotivated?
What to say? We have to say that we answer for our dogs now, because motivation is actually not the problem with our dogs. I think the more training they get, the more crazier they get. So, but for other dogs, maybe I think it's a mentally thing. The physical capacity of the dog, it's enormous, but the mental capacity is the problem, I think.
Mm.
But also, if they, like our dogs, they are really born to run. They love to run, love to run fast. And if they aren't, I think if they are not motivated, or I think that it's a problem with some small injuries and things that. So then we check out everything.
So it's like a warning sign. If
It's
they're
a warning sign if
they're
they're
not motivated.
Yes, it's
They've been training too much. They have pain somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be a problem. Like, I don't think we have ever trained our dogs so much that they start to lose motivation. So, yeah, I would say that's a warning sign.
The next questions are about more about training and preparations and some tips and tricks. The first question is, how do you warm up your dogs before running fast?
I think the faster you're supposed to go, the more time you have to spend on the warm-up. So before competition, especially the big dogs, I try to spend a lot of time, maybe in some cases 30 minutes, maybe between 30 and 20 minutes for the biggest dogs, because it's full speed from the beginning. But for the everyday training, when you are in a little bit lack of time, the warm-up it's not so long. Then it's more like take them out of the car. I try to walk them to the trail, maybe a little bit into the trail, so it's about maybe 5 minutes walking. But then you also start in a much slower speed. Start slow, you never go fast in downhills. So the demand for warm-up is not that high. Of course, ideally, you should spend plenty of time with the warm-up.
How can you build up the distance in training?
I think it's very important to build it up. Start short and then build step by step. So we start maybe at the beginning of the season with 3 kilometers. And then the safest is to build very, very slow. But because they only train 3 kilometers, they can almost train every day. You can build a little bit. But the goal is to get them up to like 10, 11 kilometers. For that, we used like a couple of months, I would say.
But it's very important to remember that 7K in 16 degrees, it's so much longer or harder for the dog than the same K in 5 degrees.
Yeah. So for us, we kind of use the morning temperature as a guideline. And as they get colder, we can also naturally build up. But it's better to build slow than to go too fast, I think.
Do you train your dogs if you go out for the first training session after summer? Do you train them 3 kilometers in one run, or do you take some breaks?
No, always breaks. Plenty of breaks.
Let them cool down in some water. We know where the water is.
Yeah.
During the session. It's also very important, I think, especially when the temperature is high.
Yeah.
Go up there and they cool down, and then we go back again.
And then now I'm just thinking about, if you are talking about you're stopping in the water, do you maybe have a problem in races if you meet water? How do you teach this in training?
Yeah, we don't let them go to the water before we tell them it's okay.
So that's one thing, and also try to pass the water before we go, and don't stop at the same places every time. So we are very lucky, it's plenty of water, so we can kind of decide where to go. So, but we have had summers with the weak dogs where it's very warm, not water available, and you have to stop at the same places. Then can be a problem, but it's a big focus that this
Yeah, it's almost the same with the distance. We build it up step by step, I think.
but it's many ways to train the stamina.
Yes.
Like we do most of our training with pulling, and then but we can also go swimming. We can train power walking.
Water treadmill.
So it's many ways to do it. But stamina is also a mental thing, and I think for bikejoring and scooter competitions, it's not much stamina needed. As long as it's a healthy dog, they're built for running. As long as they have no injuries, the right weight, and a much needed.
I think the stamina is so related to that the dog trusts you. You know, trust you when you can run fast. That you don't do anything stupid things on your bike. So they're just gonna
So it's like
concentrate
the
on
mental
running.
thing.
Yes, it's a mental thing.
Yeah.
I don't get stressed or anxious about things that can happen.
How does a training week for you and your dogs look like?
Yeah, the plan is no plan.
No, I cannot say that.
No, it's we have this base. I think we have doing it for years. So it's always the dog first. I think every second day they do harness work, and the other days they do other stuff.
And of course, it varies a lot what type of year it is, but building up for competition, the rule of thumb is every second day. Sometimes a little bit more, seldom less than every second day. But so then it's harness work, and we can also vary it. But like, if you want to increase a little bit, you train in the mornings, and the next thing is in the evening. So it's more like 1.5 day between if you want to step up a little bit. And then for us, it's just to fill up. Or I can also say that when the closer we come to the competition, the more time and focus comes to the dog. Don't increase training as much, but you put more effort into doing the right exercises and have high quality. You go to different places, you train them one by one, you spend more time, or you maybe go to the chiropractor, etc., etc. So the closer you get to competitions, the more focus that so our training often gets but for our training we try to have 2 to 3 intervals per week, a little bit of power training, and maybe one longer exercise. But the longer exercise is what is prioritized away, I think, because we compete very short, so I don't do many long trainings. Maybe that's also my but we have also decided to have like more dogs. The more dogs you have, it will kind of affect your own training, but I think it gives like a better average. Having many dogs, you see that your own it will affect your own training a little bit negatively, but it will make you stronger like overall. But because we don't train so much long exercises, I try maybe to build them up in blocks, so I can have maybe 1 week where you do only long, for example, and have 3-4 of this during the year, and it will kind of compensate for not training as much long. So most of the things I do is very, very short trainings.
But with dogs, it's difficult to make plans. We get a lot of questions about plans. But with dogs, it's very difficult because they are different. And I check the dog as a dog physio. I check the dog every second day, and Victor adjusts the training after what I say about the dogs.
I think it's a very important thing. And also with dogs, you have the temperatures, it's so many things that has to be adjusted. So it's very, very hard to make strict plans. Every plan is changed a lot. And I think we spend very much time on individual programs for each dog. Like I do most of the training, and I tell Linn what I see, and then she comes up with what the dog need for the next day. And it's big variations.
It's good to have a Linn.
It is. Everybody should have a Linn.
Who's the real boss here?
Do you train the dogs the same for bike or scooter, or do you differentiate between the two?
Mainly they do the same. Like they follow the same and they train the same, but the scooter dogs, they will have a little bit more scooter focus the closer we get to the competition. But it's not much. It's maybe just quite some exercises to make them used to that it's a little bit heavier, and it's and the kicking kind of the rhythm of the kicking. But of course, I know the scooter dogs, they train a little bit heavier, etc. during the year. And I train them a little bit more alone than the others that I mainly train 2 and 2. But besides that, it's not many differences.
Good. Is there a special technique you use to do scooter? And how do you kick?
I have to say that because most of my training is on the bike, I think you can take a lot of the bike technique to the scooter. I mean, if you're comfortable and have a great technique with the bike, you can adjust it. Then you're also safe on the scooter, and by training the bike, you get so much more turns. Everything is so much. Because you can bike so much longer. But for the kicking, you have to train specific. And so I spent quite a lot of time watching the professional guys that race scooter without dog. See how they kick, how they really lift their knee high and hammer down, straight down. And so yeah, it's hard to explain, but look at the professional guys. That's my key tips, I think.
How do you feed and water your dogs before and after training?
It depends on the training, the exercise, I think, the temperature, and the time you have for training. In the morning is difficult. Victor are early up in the morning, and if he is giving the dogs water, it will be very early, I think. So,
but I think the key message is you cannot do much wrong in dryland because they're racing very short. They don't need much. But before competitions, I try actually 2 to 4 hours before. It's a little bit individual how fast things are going through. But on dryland, I give it longer ahead than on snow, for example. Because they race short, I want everything to be out of the system. I want them to be good hydrated, but everything is supposed to be out of the system before we go running. So before competitions, I give them water 4 hours before. And make sure that everything is peed out.
and we use a lot of water in the food every day.
Yeah.
2 meals a day with a lot of water, so they are always okay hydrated, I think.
And they used to drinking.
Do you put something in the water to make it more attractive for the dogs to drink it?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
For sure. So we use this Royal Canin Recovery. They have this paste that's tasting very well. And so yeah, it's important. And if you have a dog that doesn't drink much, I think it's important to save the good things for the competition. So you don't get the best every day. So if you have problems, make sure that you have something something extra for the special days. So you're sure that drink what they're supposed to drink.
Now thinking a little bit more after training. When do you feed them after training? How long time do you wait before feeding them or watering them again? And how do you guys do it?
Yeah.
We always give them clear water when they come back to the car after training or competitions. And then short after that, just walk them down a little bit so they are not like very pacing or breathing very much. And then give them some food.
Or this light recovery
Recovery.
with water.
Yeah. Not so much, but just enough to get a little bit more hydrated and recovery
starting.
Yeah.
And then food. Yeah. Depends on the day, but
maybe
an hour.
Yeah. 2 hours late.
Is it possible to compete with a reactive dog? Do you have any tips to train with a reactive dog?
I'm sure that there are different levels of reactiveness, but my advice would maybe be not to do it. But I'm sure if you take really much care and responsibility, I'm sure it's possible in some kind of way.
But I don't think it's very fun actually, because you will be scared to destroy for other competitors. But maybe the most easiest way to do it with canicross, because then you have your hands free and then you can keep your dogs when you are somebody are overtaking you, just to make sure that nothing will happen.
But for training, I think it should be no problem to go out alone. And so for training, no problem. But for competition, then you need to take a lot of responsibility. And my advice would be not to do it, I think, because you can scare other dogs. You can make them scared for life, and things can happen. Then it would not be fun.
But you said, like you said, there are different degrees of reactiveness, and some dogs just want to play, but some are really aggressive, and we are talking about the aggressive dogs here, who are more interested in trying to catch other dogs than to run. So I think my advice would also be to maybe stay out of competitions. But training, go out when they are early in the morning, when there are not so many outside, and just enjoy, have fun with your dog.
The last set of questions is about equipment. What type of bike is the best to use for a beginner?
I prefer to use a mountain bike. And if you're a beginner, you can adjust the bike so that you feel safer. Like put on bigger tires, bigger knobs, make sure that you have really good brakes, put on a wide handlebar. This will just make you feel safer and it will be more fun. And you don't need a brand new bike. You can just adjust a normal mountain bike. And I feel it's for training. I feel it's more fun when I feel safe. So I put on big brakes and big tires, so you can stop whenever you want.
Yeah. So would you advise them to start with a bike with V brakes or disc brakes, for example?
Disc brakes for sure. Hydraulic disc brakes. I put on bigger discs, for example, to make sure that you have very good braking power.
It's very important to say that we use different bikes for training and competition, because in training we brake a lot. So it's much better to use other bike.
For sure.
Cheaper bike for that.
So your race bike is always ready for racing.
Yes.
What products do you prefer? Do you use the same type of harness on each dog, or do you switch between harnesses? What do you do?
We use all the different kind of harnesses, and for training we like to vary it, just to make sure that it's variation, different models, even different sizes, so it's not the same thing over and over again. But for competitions, then we use the harness that we feel fits the best for each dog. And in general, it's the free motion for the bike and scooter. It has a higher pulling point, and the elastic bands make them being able to stretch out for each step, and I think it just fits them very, very well. But for the teams that run a little bit more off center, like the 2-dog scooter and the 4-dog and 2-dog sled, we prefer to use the gnome. It's a little bit lower pulling point, and it's I feel it's a little bit better sometimes when they run off center.
Yeah. And we also use this stick harness. I really like this stick harness, and use it when just by hiking, when the dogs walk in trotting, not galloping walk. It's very good for the building on the muscles of the back, actually.
Mm. And also the line harness for the young dogs.
For the young dogs.
We use the line harness a lot. We take like the young dogs, they cannot train. You cannot train them hard. So instead we do the evening walks, and with the line harness, then the dog doesn't have to go straight in front of you. It can go a little bit here, a little bit there, but you still have this feeling of pulling. And this is the basic training before all the pulling we do. So
and it also gives you a little bit more control when you have the point on the line harness.
Much better control, I think. So that's maybe the most used harness we have.
Do you like to use an antenna for your bike or scooter, or some people drive without antenna? Do you have some pros and cons about why you should use an antenna or not?
Yeah, in the beginning I didn't use antenna. I think it wasn't worth it, but and I still don't use the antenna for training, but for competition I always have it, because things can happen very fast, and it's really boring when it's World Championship or you have been traveling to Canada and you get the bungee in your wheel. I mean, so the more and more things I do, I try to avoid risk. So I feel it's a very, very good tool to take away that risk, because in a normal run you don't need it, but things can happen so fast, and then when you have had the bungee in the wheel one time, you don't want it again. So yeah, that's why I use it, just to take away. It's one more thing you don't have to focus on.
Because when you get the bungee in the tire, it goes so fast, and also the dog are dragged into the bike, and with the with this disc brake, you can really hurt your dog. So it's also for security for the dog.
Do you guys have preparation about which type of bungee leash you're using?
Yeah, I like a long bungee leash, so I've used the 2.8 to I feel it's just a little bit safer and more comfortable to have the dogs a little bit more in front of you.
Do you think equipment is important in this sport?
Both yes and no, I would say. It's of course we compete about seconds, but still it's so many variables in our sport. So we don't need a super expensive bike, etc., because it's so many variables. It's not like marginal gains like in many other sports. But on the other side, you need good equipment, and you need safe equipment. You don't want your bungee to break, and you need good harnesses that fits the dogs very well. So focus on the details and things around the dogs. But when it comes to the rest, I think you don't need the absolutely best that's available. You can step down a little bit and focus on things that works, and make sure that the things that are around the dog is good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have any tips and tricks you would like to share yourself?
I think my best tips would be to use to spend a lot of time with young dogs in the line harness. It's a very good way of preparing them of being a sled dog. And young dogs you cannot train as much, but you can stimulate them mentally by go with them for a walk. If you live on the countryside, go to the city, take them for a walk there, let them experience plenty of things so that they are maturing and getting prepared for being a good race dog.
Okay, so that was the last question for this evening. Thank you so much, Linn and Viktor, for being here this evening. And I hope that people have learned something today. So thank you so much for being here. And it was amazing that you could come.
Thank you.
Thank you.